A forgotten children's vocabulary book from the 1980s sat untouched for decades. No attention, no distribution, no signal that it mattered. Then a viral moment changed everything, and it suddenly became valuable again. Nothing about the book changed. Only visibility changed. That is the uncomfortable parallel in healthcare. Physicians are taught to focus on delivering correct care. If the diagnosis is right and the treatment is appropriate, the system is assumed to reflect that value. But in reality, there is a translation layer between clinical care and reimbursement that determines what gets recognized, what gets questioned, and what gets lost. That layer is not clinical. It is structural, and that is where most revenue leakage happens. Billing is not a reflection of care. It is a translation of care into a structured language that payers can interpret. And translation is never neutral. Small differences in documentation create large differences in reimbursement outcomes. Over time, that becomes invisible financial drift. This is why many physicians feel they are working harder without proportional return. It is not just efficiency. It is whether the system can consistently recognize value already created. The problem is that most tools sit downstream. They react to documentation instead of shaping it at the point of care. By the time interpretation begins, ambiguity already exists. And ambiguity is expensive. Once clinical intent is unclear, the system fills the gap with assumptions. Coding becomes interpretation. Billing becomes correction. Revenue becomes unpredictable. Healthcare is not primarily inefficient. It is overinterpreted after the fact and understructured at the point of creation. That is the real divide between high and low-performing clinics, even with similar patients. The future will not be defined by more tools, but by who controls structure at the moment care becomes data. Because when structure improves, everything downstream stabilizes. Billing becomes clearer. Revenue becomes more predictable. And physicians finally see value that was always there, but previously invisible. The question is simple. Where is structure breaking in your workflow today? And what value is being lost in that gap?